Which is the best running shoe to get you your fastest time this year? 4 shoes, 1K flat out in each of them, all to see which is going to be the fastest on race day.
And we've done this before on the channel, but this time I couldn't let Andy have all the fun, so I've decided to test them all out alongside him and see how each of the different shoes compare for each of us.
Coming up, we're going to be comparing the following. First up, the New Balance Supercomp Elite V4. Then we've got the Puma Fast-R 2, followed by the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris, and then lastly, the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2.
But which one of those do you think will win? Let us know in the comments. But just to be clear, Andy, this is not a race, so don't get too competitive.
I'm always competitive. I'm already feeling nervous. I reckon we should get stuck in.
Yeah, let's go.
Shoe number 1, kilometre number 1, New Balance Supercomp Elite V4. Okay, let's go.
New Balance Supercomp Elite V4 is a total overhaul of the V3.
Andy and I both wore the V3 for Valencia Marathon in 2023, so it was really interesting to compare the updates.
First thing to say is that it fits completely differently, so it's got a totally redesigned upper, which feels a lot wider and roomier compared to the sock-like fit, the previous iteration of the shoe, which I loved because I had narrow feet and I felt like it really hugged my foot, but this one didn't fit quite so well for me.
Well, I actually felt like the V4 was a much better fit for me because I do have wide feet, and especially on the top where the previous version dug in, this one fit a lot better. Although right at the front of the shoe was a little bit tight for my toes, so I would potentially size up half a size if I was using these for a longer distance race like a marathon.
We were running this kilometre in relatively slick and wet conditions that you can see on the road, which the shoe dealt with pretty well, although I did feel a little bit of slippage on some of the corners and actually when I was trying to accelerate right at the beginning to get up to pace.
These shoes are fast, but one thing that's interesting is that they feel really nice at slower paces too.
Yeah, I always want super shoes that are more versatile quite often. Certainly if you're training for a longer distance, you'd like a shoe that you can not only feel good in when you run fast, but they're fine to jog in, to warm up in, or run at all of your different paces. Like that versatility makes them more flexible for your training. But when I did get up to pace, they felt firm and bouncy and really did propel me forwards. But for me, these are probably more of a longer distance shoe for racing compared to an all-out 1K or 5K.
3:14.
I did notice a tiny little bit of slippage getting started around the corners, but not too bad.
They really helped me drive forwards, and I had like enough cushioning but bounce. They felt really comfy, but also like they were helping me propel forwards.
They feel like a marathon shoe, so more suited to protecting you over a longer distance than an all-out 1 kilometre, but pleasantly surprised with that.
Right, shoe number 2, kilometre number 2, and we're testing the Puma Fast-R 2s this time, so let's see how fast we can go.
So, the Puma Fast-R 2, this is such a striking looking shoe and so different to any other super shoe on the market.
Yeah, it's got this decoupled heel separating the forefoot from the heel, showing off the carbon plate which runs the whole way through the shoe and pokes out of the front like a fin.
This feature actually took me a bit of time to get used to. I think it was maybe more in my head, but I definitely felt like I was changing my form slightly and I was becoming a little bit more flat-footed, but over a longer distance this might be something you could adjust to.
Honestly, I didn't notice it at all. What I did feel though were the updates compared to the first iteration. The Fast-R 1 felt suited to shorter distances like a 5K because it felt just like an old school racing flat even though it looked like this, whereas the R2 feels softer, particularly in the heel, and therefore better tailored towards marathon. It does feel a fair bit heavier though than some of the other shoes, which I noticed in the first few hundred meters as I was trying to get up to speed.
What I love is the shoe has a really lovely sock-like upper. It didn't dig in anywhere and it felt like a really comfy fit around my foot with lots of room in the toe box too.
Yeah, I love the upper and the fit, and the grip is absolutely unreal. One thing that did surprise me as well was in the last 500 meters when I was really flagging, I shortened my stride length a bit, sped up my cadence, and all of a sudden the shoe seemed to really help me pick up the pace. Compared to fading into the finish, I felt strong coming into that last 100 meters, which was great.
If anything, I prefer the previous version of these in terms of running an all-out K. I definitely felt in the back half, second half of it when things got really tough, I got a lot more back than them than I felt like I was getting in the first half, so there we go.
I didn't feel like they rolled me off the toes quite as much. Felt a little bit heavier than the New Balance shoes. Still really fast.
Shoe number 3, kilometre number 3, Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris. Okay, let's go.
First thing to say about the Asics is they are light and feel really light. This does mean that they felt a bit less stable than the New Balance and Puma, because they feel like a much more minimal shoe, even though they have a similar stack height.
See, I didn't notice this as much and actually felt quite stable in them, but yeah, the upper was a super minimal mesh and the shoe felt really light on my feet too. It made getting up to speed feel really easy because the shoe just adjusted to hitting your target pace, feeling light and speedy.
It does have quite a wide, deep toe box, so I had to cinch them in a bit, especially towards the front lace holes, but even with my narrow feet, I could get a nice tight fit with the laces, and the tongue is separate, which makes getting a nicely adjusted fit easier too.
I also think this shoe would be great for a range of distances, unlike some of the others. The comfort and speed would suit a marathon distance, but could also help you with shorter races like 5k to half marathons too.
A big thing for me is just how different this feels to previous Asics Super Shoes, which I found to be really hard, and in our previous tests I felt I had to work really hard to generate pace in them, as opposed to the feeling of the shoe helping you out. But in the Metaspeed Sky Paris, it's the total opposite. The foam feels like it has the right balance of softness and bounce, and it was easy to run what felt like incredibly fast right through to the end.
They feel like they've got the cushioning where I need it, but also the support to kind of help me with my kind of stride.
They feel so different to the New Balance and the Puma, perhaps slightly more like an older school Vaporfly Next Percent 1.
They're a bit higher stacked, so I wouldn't want to wear them for slower running, for example. And I also feel like the upper mesh is really comfortable, but they kind of probably sit on the smaller side, so your toes are maybe a bit more squished in. So if you're someone that's feet swell a little bit in longer distances, then maybe half a size up in these. But they felt really fast.
Less stable, but I would say faster. But they're so much lighter, and I think that makes a massive difference.
Right, shoe 4, kilometre 4. This is the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2. Let's see how fast they can take me.
Okay, so the Mizunos honestly felt like nothing else I've ever run in before.
Yes, they are completely unique, but they're a very fast shoe.
It takes a bit of time to get used to these shoes, but then when you start striking the ground with your midfoot or forefoot, they really do propel you forwards and enable you to go really fast.
Yeah, it's worth saying that if you do strike the ground behind your midfoot, so if you're a heel striker, even at faster paces, then these shoes won't do much for you, and you might find them quite difficult to run in. But if you hit the sweet spot, then you really do get into a great rhythm with these shoes. I've worn these before in a 1K all-out time trial in a race situation with all of the adrenaline that comes along with that, and they felt super fast then and they felt super fast today.
Sarah actually wore the previous version of these for the Osaka marathon, and the new update definitely feels even more cushioned and comfortable enough for a marathon distance, so long as you're the type of runner that can benefit from the design.
The upper's perhaps slightly more structured than the others we've tested, but I like that. You need to know your racing shoes are going to stay locked in place throughout the race.
Yeah, the upper did make them feel slightly heavier when putting them on, but this probably gave a bit more support, and then when I was at my pace, they felt light and quick all the way to the finish line.
When you do get into that rhythm, the unique design really generates pace even when you're tired, and actually almost forces you to maintain the pace that you've set, pushing me right the way through to the finish line.
Please hit like and subscribe to the running channel, because we're not doing this for nothing. I'll tell you, my body on the line here, and that is 1K all out is a different kind of pain.
The foam in the midsole feels really thick, so it feels like you've got a lot of bounce and energy return, which is so good in them. I'm not used to having so much cushioning in the middle. It really helps you to propel forwards.
These feel fast in a totally different kind of mind-blowing pace. Bouncy, weird, wonderful for really fast stuff. Not sure if I could run quite as far in these, but in terms of going all out, they definitely give you a boost.
So it is a strange sensation, but it actually felt like a really fast shoe. Compared to the others, they felt quite lightweight. Not quite as light as the Asics or the New Balance, I'd say, but a little bit lighter than the Pumas. I think that's all I've got to say.
Thankfully, that's it. 4 different super shoes, 4 different 1K time trials, and we've tested them, and we're going to go through them in the order in which you can see them here, which is the order we ran in. So Jess, we started with the New Balance.
Yeah, so New Balance for me, I did it in 3:14.
And for me, it was 2:48, so a pretty strong start.
Yeah, then we went on to the Pumas, which I did in 3:20.
And for me, 2:48 again, so exactly the same time as the New Balance.
Nice, and then Asics, I did it in 3:14 as well.
And then for me, the Asics was a big jump up here, 5 seconds faster, 2 minutes 43 seconds.
And finally, we checked out the Mizuno shoes, which for me was 3:16.
And then for me, just behind the Asics in 2:44, so really close at the end. but ultimately, which one out of this array here would you pick? And it's interesting for me as well that we came out with quite different orders or leaderboards for us both.
Yeah, I think different shoes work so much for different people, and for me I think overall the Asics were my favourites, but I definitely choose them as a top shoe for marathon, and then probably half marathon for the New Balance, Mizuno 10k, and then Puma's 5k, so a bit of everything I think.
Right, well Jess has sat on the fence there and not really picked one. I'm going to go with the Asics. They felt the most versatile. I like a super shoe which feels like you can run a little bit slower in, but also helps you with that all-out speed, and they're just so light. But there's not much to choose between any of them, and I did run that amazing all-out 1k time trial in the Mizunos earlier in the year. So those are our choices, but as Jess has already said, it's very different for different individual running styles. So which ones would be your choice?
Yeah, and if you like this, go and check out where Andy tested 4 more super shoes in this video right here.
Yeah, we didn't let you do it. They just made me do it. Brilliant.
We'll let him do all the hard work.